So yeah, this is police and parks. I was gonna do cops in cars, but obviously with the pandemic, that's not a good idea to ride around. This is just a get to know you segment, to get to know our different officers, and I figured we'd snag you before you're out the door retiring in December. This is Steve Young. Everybody knows him by Yogi. I think if you've been around Papillion for any matter of time, everybody knows Yogi. Going back to the beginning of your career, what made you want to get into law enforcement?
It was a multitude of things. I think at the time I was just barely 21 years old. A lot of it had to do with some very important people in my life at that time. But ultimately, I think it was kind of a calling. You know, it sounds kind of goofy, but at the time I was going to school for civil engineering, and I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I met some people, and policing at the time was still, and it still is, an admirable profession, and just something I aspired to, and I followed through with it.
How many years have you worked now in law enforcement?
In December it'll be 39.
39 years. Okay, so how did you end up in Papillion? Did you start in Papillion? Did you start somewhere else?
I started and finished in Papillion.
Oh wow.
At the same time I tested for Papillion, I tested for Nebraska State Patrol. And
what kept you here?
I'd like to say it was something as simple as Papillion called first. But at the time, the State Patrol, when they got hired, they'd move you to all ends of the state. And that didn't appeal to me as much, but ultimately I think it was just a desire to stay here in Papillion.
Approaching your retirement, what's some advice you'd give to new officers?
Wow, I'm full of advice. Probably three most important things to me. You gotta be thick-skinned, and you gotta be able to adapt fast. You got to have a higher belief. For me, it's Jesus Christ. You know, from the day I started this job to the day I walk out to the day I die, it's that belief in Jesus Christ. If you don't have that belief, you're going to see some things, you're going to feel some things that you're going to have questions for them. And then probably, and I'm not putting them in any order, you got to marry right. You know, there's days I go home where I'm convinced that my spouse, Debbie, of 34 years, is my only friend in the world. And marry right, and have that higher belief, and be thick-skinned, and anybody can do this job.
What's your best day on the job, or what's a memory that stands out to you?
I still remember being sworn in. You know, as much as the promotions meant, there hasn't been one great day. There's been many great days. That would be a tough one, but it'd have to be being sworn in. It's just, finish the police academy. For me, it was a huge accomplishment.
One of the days early in my career here for the city of Papillion that I got to know you was you were doing duty for the president. When the president came to town for the visit. That was a pretty cool day.
That's a top five.
Yeah.
That was working with the Secret Service and you and all the agencies in the metro area to coordinate that was a phenomenal event.
I was gonna say, you weren't working with me. I was hiding behind a mailbox taking photos. What's maybe one of your more challenging experiences, or just in general some of the more challenging days in law enforcement?
Don't get me wrong, the fact that it's challenging and different every day is probably one of the biggest draws to this profession. It really is. If you like constant change and can adapt to it, that's probably one of the draws. One of the most difficult draws has got to be social media. It's the faceless opinion of people that, you know, I'll never meet and have a difficult time changing their minds. Tackling that and using that to the benefit of all is probably one of the most challenging things right now. I think we've got to quit thinking of police officers as police officers. It's maybe a piece of the puzzle of the community. You know, they're people. You know, they're wrong sometimes. Sometimes it's catastrophic when they're wrong. But at least the ones that I've worked with here in the metro area, every one of them goes to work every day trying to make the world a better place, and they truly are. Does that mean they're not going to be some incredible mistakes made along the way? They're going to be. But this is a very fast-paced, moving world right now we live in, and just cut them some slack.
Yeah. On the lighter side, what's a police officer stereotype that's true and what's one that's false? Let's start with the true one. Do cops like donuts?
They do. I do. I don't know if they do.
What's your favorite kind of donut?
Cheap one. I'll say it's more true for me. These kids coming on now are so physically fit. They really monitor what they eat. I don't know if they eat donuts. We used to eat donuts because for what we used to get paid, that was our breakfast. That was something we could afford.
What's a stereotype that's not true?
Often it gets thrown at me that we think we're better than most people. It can be thing worse, that we're there to serve. We're servants, you know, and a police officer that doesn't realize that's probably in the wrong profession, but I think all of ours do.
If I'm going 27 miles an hour in a 25 mile per hour zone, will you pull me over?
I'm going to answer that by saying I work in the office, so no.